Hello and welcome to Fact or Fiction. Thank you so much for joining us here on Twitch, or if you're watching us recorded, wherever you are, welcome. I would normally, because this is Unexpected Productions, we're a theater in Pike Place Market in Seattle, and I'm kind of used in an unexpected show to welcoming you down. You would have walked through the Market Theater in Seattle. You'd have walked past the Gum Wall, which is a delightful tourist attraction to some, or a disgusting germ fest to others, and through our doors into the Market Theater. As you may have noticed, though, in the last year or so, things have been a little different, and live theater has been a challenge. So we're coming to you online, and we appreciate you joining us. And we're excited that so many of you can join us from around the world, not just here in Seattle. So wherever you are, welcome and thank you for being here. Tonight specifically, you're here for a storytelling show, and not just true stories and not just made up stories. You're here for both because we have 6 performers, 3 storytellers here to tell you true stories, and 3 improvisers who are going to have to work together to try to make up stories that that you believe, that meet certain challenges, and that even make sense as stories. We're going to try to make it hard on them, so get ready for that. Tonight's theme is I Quit, and we're going to get to that in a minute. And we're going to talk about what that means to our performers tonight. But thank you for not quitting and being here with us tonight. So to start us out here, I'm going to go ahead and bring out our improvisers first, the people making up the stories as we go. Thank you for jumping out there. Improvisers. First off, you heard him maybe playing when you came in. We have Jason DeLeo, our improvising musician. Let's hear it for Jason. Thank you very much. We have Cynthia Lair.
Yeah.
We have, yep, right there. We have Jessica Robbins.
Yeah, we do.
Yep, and we have Leah Engel. They don't know what stories they're telling yet because we're going to challenge them, and they're going to have to tell them together. So tonight you're going to see 3 stories, each one with 2 of them. So each of these performers is going to tell 2 stories, except for Jason, who's going to play music for whichever ones he feels like. So thank you all, who I'll bring you back out in a minute. But I want to introduce you to our true storytellers tonight. The people, yep. We have 3 of them. We have Lindsey Graham right there. Lindsay, you have been improvising at Unexpected Productions for about 10 years, I think we said. You work in tech, which you were not excited about, but you did allow me to at least acknowledge that that's the fact. I also work in tech, not that exciting in Seattle, so I get it. But yeah, and so welcome, Lindsay. You're not just telling a story tonight, you are also going to judge the improvised stories, each of you, and you have chosen, if I remember correctly, the challenge. So we're going to give these storytellers challenges, and it's going to be your job to decide, did they meet that challenge or did they try to get away without it? So thank you for being here. Our second storyteller tonight is Cheryl Platts. You and I've been improvising at Unexpected for about 12 years. We joined at the same time, I believe, as well as a lot of other shows, Nerdprov and for Seattle Experimental Theater. And also you speak internationally now. Well, up until about a year ago, I couldn't keep track of what country you were in. You fly around talking and educating about design, and you have your own design company now, Idea Platts, right? Design education, and your own book. So so check that out. That's Cheryl Platts. And finally, you may have seen her if you've been to Unexpected Productions right before we closed down, because Tracey, I forgot to ask how to pronounce your last name, so I'm going to say it in as French a way as possible, which is like Croisier.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That was how I got away with high school French, was just trying to say things as French in my mind as possible. So
yes, but of course
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. You're a storyteller all over, an international storyteller.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
you I mentioned you've performed at Unexpected Productions in our Inside Story show on
Yes,
stage.
which was crazy fun. And the other thing that was really fun about that is that I had open heart surgery. And then I got the email about 4 days after surgery that said, "Do you want to perform?" And I was like, "Do I ever?" I had no idea if I'd be able to like get on stage, but I did. And it was fantastic.
Wow. I think I saw that show. I don't remember you having like IV tubes or anything.
No.
So thank you. We're happy you made it. We're happy you made it tonight. And I did want to plug. You're in a lot of different storytelling shows, but tomorrow is the 99-second story slam, right?
It is with Sean Wellington. He does 3 in a row. And it's been really challenging for me because whenever I go to the Moth, I'm always 7.5 minutes. They can blow all the whistles they want. And so to just nail 99 seconds has been a really good creative exercise for sure.
Yeah. Well, everyone get your stopwatches out and you can time Tracey tonight and see how long our story tonight is. So awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I forgot to assign Cheryl her judging role. So I'm going to jump back. Cheryl is judging our stories tonight, which means she's looking like beginning, middle, end. It's kind of up to her. Maybe she wants to like, hero's journey it up or look for Kurt Vonnegut, like wheel versus woe, whatever she wants to do, whatever story is to her, she's there judging that. And Tracey, you have agreed to judge whether the story fit the theme, which is I Quit Tonight. So all of you are giving each improvised story 1 through 5. So and I want you to be tough on these people. These are improvisers. They will like try to get away with all sorts of shenanigans. So be tough. Don't let them get away with just making whatever up. So because that's literally their job. Awesome. Let me bring everybody out to talk a little bit about the theme before we jump in, which is I quit. So my first question is, do quitters ever win?
Yes.
Yes.
For sure. Although I think endings are so much harder than beginnings. And the other thing I was thinking about is like when you get old, you can take a class on how to fall. And when you're a baby, you can take classes on how to walk. But in between, there should be a class on how to quit a bad job. Don't you?
Yes.
Or a book or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes you fail at quitting. I failed at quitting improv several times, and I won when I stopped quitting improv. So I quit it in college. That did not work out. And then I quit it in college again, and that did not work out. And then I tried to quit it out here, and it did not work out. And then I got into UP, and I've never quit it since, and it's been great.
Wow. So have you quit quitting, or are you?
I quit quitting. Yeah,
Okay.
I quit quitting improv. I gave that up.
It's really very positive to quit things like smoking.
True.
For some people, drinking, for other people not.
Yeah.
I think of quitting as a form of saying yes to yourself. Like if you have something in your life that's not working, a job, a relationship, etc., if you quit that thing, you open up a world of possibilities of things that can better serve you, that you now have time for.
Yeah, I grew up, I'm a middle child of 3 female bearing children, and there was always this subtle competition. Like if you stuck with something, you had to finish it because your sister might not have or whatever. And so for myself, it was like, oh, I'm playing trumpet. I am playing trumpet until the day I graduate, and I will not play another instrument. It will, blah, 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 blah. And so like being committed to a thing was always prized. And now I'm an adult and I'm like, wait, I don't feel like it. Cool.
Yeah, same here. I wasn't allowed to quit anything as a kid. And I think that kind of ties in with what Leah's saying, which is like your parents don't let you say yes to yourself when you're like 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I think as a result, it's like I've been really stubborn with quitting things, except jobs. I quit jobs a lot.
And it's like there's a value to sticking something out, but to force a kid who has no idea who they are or even what the world is to stick with something is a little bit ludicrous. Like if they're not super into it, why should they stick with it?
Right.
Yeah.
Unless it's dishes and they're in the middle of it. That's different.
Wow. So it sounds pretty unanimous that we're fans of quitting here. So
If it's not right, it's not right.
so go out, audience, and quit your jobs, and your relationships, whatever. Just let it all go. So
Sounds like there's some pro quitting in chat as well.
I'm going to ask a question, which I'm guessing I'm not going to get all the answers. But is there anything right now you're in, any of you are in, that you're like, I should probably quit this, but I haven't yet?
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate, Cynthia?
well, 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 I've been a professor for 25 years, and they keep asking me, "Oh, do you want to go?" I sort of retired. Not a good idea. And they keep asking me to teach stuff, and I keep going, "Why do you keep asking me?" And instead, like just 2 days ago, I finally emailed the chair of the department and I said, "Don't ask me. I don't want to teach anymore." So I did quit, sort of.
Yeah, I think since I've known you, you've been talking about quitting being a professor. So
Yeah.
nice. Awesome. Anyone else?
Honestly, the pandemic took care of a lot of stuff. Oh no, I can't do the thing.
True.
I
Yeah.
started looking for a house and then I quit that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
Well, I kept looking for a house, and now that I've bought one, I can't quit getting it ready. So it turns out.
Tony, I have been in this house for 8 years now and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I quit 2 houses before the one I purchased, so I've been there. But you have to sell it to quit, or just let it collapse, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else before we jump into some stories?
I don't need to quit my job, but I do need to quit working so late.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So like short-term quitting, like it's not all like long-term. It could be literally like the thing I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I don't need to stay on till midnight multiple days a week. I could stop at, say, 7:30.
There you go.
Yeah,
But
that's
we'll
a good
see you
point.
in about 13 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just got to finish up an email, excuse me.
Right.
Yeah, because there's like inertia people and momentum people. Like I stay up super late because I hate changing states and going to sleep. But once I'm asleep, I never want to wake up. So there's a little quitting. So awesome. Well, great stuff. I hope a lot of that we hear in tonight's stories. We're gonna start with a true story tonight from Lindsey Graham. So Lindsay, thank you so much. We're gonna go hide away our cameras and take it away.
Wonderful. So at the end of my first year of business school, I got embroiled in a cheating scandal. The weird part was I wasn't sure I'd actually cheated. The class was macroeconomics, and the professor was sort of strange and off-putting. He had a huge mustache and a penchant for entrapment, which I'll get into later. But the thing I remember most about him was the lecture in which he forced several of my Indian classmates to share what castes their families were part of. Super inappropriate. And I spent the whole time looking down at the surface of my desk trying to memorize every last crack and crevice to distract myself from how awkward it was. The rules of our final exam that semester were also convoluted. It was a take-home exam, but it was closed book. We could be anywhere when we took the exam, but we had to take it between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. on the exam date. We get the exam via email and send it back to our professor via email, but we couldn't be on the internet during the exam period itself. So I wanted to take the exam at the business school library. So I got there right as it opened on exam day, and I found an open desk somewhere in the basement. I'd had some time to kill before the exam actually was going to hit my inbox. So I just sent a few good luck emails to and from with my classmates, and then checked the online results of a swim meet that was happening somewhere else in the country in another time zone. And then when I heard the ping of my email inbox, I quickly switched tabs and downloaded the exam. And at that point, I noticed that it was exactly 9 a.m. So there were a few tricky questions on the exam, but I don't remember it being unusually difficult. The problem was everyone in my class was taking the same exam. So the people who cared about their MBA, GPA, and I was not one of those people, felt like they needed a way to distinguish themselves to earn a higher grade. So getting the tricky questions 100% correct was very important to them. Whereas for the rest of us, getting the tricky questions about 70% right was good enough. I finished my exam before the time was over, just right in time, and emailed it back to the professor. And then by this time of the morning, the clouds in California have kind of burned off and the blue sky is sort of in full effect. And that's just the way the Bay Area works. It's sort of cold and grumpy in the mornings and then becomes shiny and hopeful by the early afternoon. So I spent a few minutes in the kind of blue sky courtyard talking to my friends, and then we just like scattered off to our classes, and our other obligations for the day. Kind of forgot about the exam itself. About a week after the exam, Professor Levine emailed the entire class, and he CC'd the Dean of Students, Dean Julia. In reviewing the exams, he told us that he'd noticed some inconsistencies. So he and the administration were going to conduct a fancy electronic audit. If we'd strayed at all from the exam's instructions, he was strongly encouraging us to come forward and say something. If we didn't come forward, and we were later found to be in violation of his instructions, he said that the punishment was going to be a lot more severe. My neck, when I got that email, my neck just got hot. Had I quit out of the browser tabs I'd had open that morning? I was toggling between my email inbox and the online swimming results right before 9 a.m. But had I actually turned off my Wi-Fi? Did I remember hearing the ping of any emails hitting my inbox during the exam? I just couldn't remember. Right after Professor Levine sent his email, we happened to just have a regular happy hour in the courtyard of the business school. And we just couldn't avoid talking about the email we'd all just gotten. Well, what did he know? What could this fancy electronic audit entail? And what did he have the rights to have access to? And then the word entrapment was bandied about quite a bit. What was he trying to get us to admit to? So I didn't know whether to confess or not, because I didn't know whether I'd actually violated any of the rules. And I didn't know what he knew. And I didn't know whether confessing to something I might not have even done would yield a greater punishment than just staying quiet and letting it blow over. A few days later, word started to get out about some of the dumb things our other classmates had done. Jeff Rauenhorst had Googled the definition of Nehru and therefore had gotten a failing grade in the class. Cliff Dank, our class president, admitted to Googling the two equations for measuring GDP because he'd forgotten the names of them. He also failed the class. Nobi Yakamoto had sent an Excel cheat sheet to about a dozen of his friends, which they'd all downloaded and used offline during the exam. Nobi got suspended for a semester. And so these guys had all confessed. Their actions were way worse than what I thought I might have done, but these were real and kind of harsh punishments. I decided to gamble and call the professor's bluff. A bold move, but I was risking a bigger punishment down the line, but I just couldn't bring myself to pre-confess to something I wasn't even sure I'd done. So I took my chances. A few days after that, this was now about 2 weeks after the exam, I got an email from the Dean of Students asking me to come to her office at 10 a.m. the next day. Crap. My gamble had backfired. The punishment was coming and it was going to be bad. So dumb. I had an internship that summer lined up at Amazon. My school was going to tell them what I'd done and Amazon would rescind the offer. I just started having all kinds of regrets and I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I dragged myself to Dean Julia's office. And when I got there, my friends, Jeff, Mike, and Elizabeth were all there too. Huh? We looked at each other, but didn't know what to say. And then the dean finally called us into her office a few seconds later. Do you know why I asked you to come in here? She said. She leaned back in her brown leather chair as if she had all day before, we had all day to sort of speak up and tell her what we were there for. So Jeff finally piped up and he said, "Is this something to do with the macro exam?" And she started nodding slowly. "I took it in Palo Alto at my parents' house," Elizabeth said. "Yeah, I took it in the city at my girlfriend's place," Mike said. The dean kind of let us squirm for a moment. And then she said, I don't care where you were." None of us knew what to say at that point. And she sort of leaned forward in her chair and said, "Jeff, you sent an email with an attachment at 8:53 the morning of the exam. Lindsay, Mike, and Elizabeth, you all opened the email. We don't know what the email said. And we don't know what the attachment had in it. Care to enlighten us?" A long pause. I racked my brain. Then Jeff broke the silence. "Oh my God, Julia, are you talking about the photo of the blue-footed boobies I sent them?" I'd forgotten all about it. Jeff had sent us an email with the subject line "boobies" in it and attached a photo of 2 blue-footed boobies, which is a bird, and wrote "good luck, a-holes" in the body of the email. He had his laptop with him at the meeting with the dean, and he just asked if he could clear it all up by pulling up his sent messages and showing Dean Julia the email. She looked at the email kind of stoically, didn't laugh at all, and said, "Thanks for clearing this up. You're all free to leave." We left her office and we were giggling and sort of hopped up on adrenaline. They all felt relieved. The secret I was keeping to myself just kind of expanded in my gut. So here we are all these years later, and I still don't know for sure whether I quit out of the browser tabs and turned off my Wi-Fi. And I still feel a little guilty for not confessing.
Thank you, Lindsay.
You are welcome.
That was our first true story of the night. We're now going to switch gears, and we're going to bring out two improvisers to tell a story, and you, Lindsay, and our other 2 storytellers are going to get to judge them. So I would like to bring out Leah and Jessica. Your challenge for this story is you're going to tell a story together, but you're actually going to quit. As you tell the story, you're going to try to quit every line mid-sentence.
Oh boy.
Just like trail off. And, I leave it to you whether the other person picks up or just starts a new, no rules around that, but you just have to end in the middle of a sentence every line. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Yep. Can't wait.
So, hey, Leah. Do you remember?
Patty and I met as college roommates, and our dynamic
Was just, it was so, yeah.
electric. Well, the moment I saw them in my chem class, in my chem 202, they had these
right up to me. She walked right up to me and she said, "Hey, you've got the things,
you've got the beakers I need."
Yes.
You've got the beakers. So I asked, can I please borrow them? I am almost done with my project. I just have this one final piece.
And I said, "Oh my God, I've got this one final piece." And together we just
we locked eyes,
yeah.
And I could tell that there were one of these beakers and there were 2 of us. So
we kind of, there was a moment, almost a rock, paper, scissors of the eyes. And
it was a stalemate. It was a stalemate, and the tension between us was just building. Electric.
Yeah. The chemistry.
There was something kind of metaphorical about having met one another in chemistry class and felt
having so much chemistry. Yeah. And it was in that moment, not only did I know we were going to battle for these beakers, but we were also going to be friends for life, no matter what the
no matter what circumstances befell us, because personally, I had come from a situation that wasn't ideal. I was living in Ohio, and
That's already not ideal.
yeah, so, I came from a small town, and the people, gosh, the people I grew up with were just,
They were so, oh my God, small-minded, small town. Kansas, it just, there's a different mindset when you only have so much and you can only do so much.
so
What you,
I knew that, growing up there was only so much I was going to tolerate in my new life in Seattle. So there I was in chemistry class. There we were,
and there's the beaker. And it's like, all right, I've got vinegar and you've got baking soda. Are we going to make this volcano or what? And it was like,
so I grabbed my baking soda and said,
let's do this. And I grabbed my vinegar and I said,
I'm pouring this in. I hope you're cool with that.
I did say that. And we were cool with it. And the volcano was like, absolutely.
It was foaming. It was practically shooting up into the air. This red and orange, yellow, food colored.
Because you were so smart. You added the food coloring. I was like, I don't even have that. You've got 2 colors.
Well, it had to be authentic. And coming from Ohio, I didn't want something that felt like a failure. I wanted to feel
Midwestern values. Yeah, you wanted it to be spectacular. Like, if we're gonna go find a place with a volcano, it's gonna be special.
And we made it special. But then the teacher came in.
And there was this accusation in the voice. Like, how did you know that these chemicals together that you just happened to both bring were gonna make this thing? It was like, we've just met. We don't know.
Still, Professor Garby looked down his glasses at us and just gave us the iciest stare.
Like, it was so cold, it almost froze the volcano.
And I said, Professor Garby, look, we truly just met. I had an idea of what I might do for a project.
I had an idea of what I might do for a project.
But we had no idea
that they would go together like that.
We would have this happenstance that created the perfect volcano.
You're just lucky it wasn't a hurricane.
And still he just stared. He stared, and we felt the same tension in the room that we had felt when we had first met.
Yeah. But this time it was negative. This time it was like the antithesis of the budding friendship. It was like the anti-friendship.
So Professor Garby pushed his glasses back up the bridge of his nose, took a breath.
And said, go to the principal's office. And so we did. And when we explained, like, the principal, well, she didn't even seem to, like, I don't remember. Do you think?
She was confused about why she was being tasked with such frivolous.
Yeah. Like, I'm actually pretty sure we're part of the reason that Professor Garby got sanctioned. Like, they started investigating things.
And they uncovered some dirt.
Ooh, yeah, they did enough to build another volcano.
But what that meant was there was no more chemistry class.
There was no more chemistry class. But we trauma bonded to the point where our friendship was just as solid
as a volcano.
As a papier-mâché volcano.
right. Thank you so much. That was our first improvised story of the night. And that means it's time to judge this story, to find out, like, did they succeed in our 3 categories? And if they didn't, how close did they come? I mentioned 3 categories, and I'll remind you, be tough. They'll try to get away with anything. So, Lindsay, I'm gonna start with you. You were rating the challenge, which was to end their sentences, you know, not at the end every time. From 1 to 5, how do you score them?
So I think that they fell into sort of the classic nice improviser trap and saved each other by interrupting each other. And so that what I will say is, like, I guess technically they sort of ended their sentences midstream, but it was often because the other improviser came through on a cape and saved the day. So I'm gonna just call that a wash and give them a 3.
Okay, I'll take it. It's like planning to quit your job and then you get fired,
Right.
which is
Is that Morissette irony? Alanis Morissette irony?
Yeah, maybe. You mean
Yeah.
non-irony? Yes.
Yeah.
And then Cheryl, you were judging the story. So where do you go 1 through 5?
You know, I thought it was cute. It was lighthearted, and like you could feel the connection between the 2 friends. And certainly there was an arc in the volcano, but it felt like the professor was kind of orthogonal. Like I really just wanted it to be about the friends, and it kind of came in at the last 30% and distracted from what I think was the core of the story. So I'm also going to give it a 3.
Okay, 3. And Tracey, you're judging it. The theme is I quit. So obviously the challenge was about quitting, but did the story itself, was it about quitting?
It wasn't. And I kept waiting for that theme to come on in. And then I sort of felt like the professor was what's the football term? Hail Mary pass? Like, here, we'll have the professor, then we'll quit him. So I don't know if you're allowed halves. I decided to go with a 3.5.
I'll take it. This is the first time we've had a half in this show. So you're a pioneer. So
Okay.
all right. That means that story, the bigger story is 9.5. So awesome. Thank you, judges. It's time for another true story, I think. And Cheryl, I believe we're gonna hand it to you to tell our next story. So thank you.
All right. I still remember slipping the offer letter into the mailbox. It was in Pittsburgh, and it was a sunny day, and I held the mailbox open and just looked at the letter hovering in the opening for a second because it was customized stationery, so it had the company's logo, Maxis, the people who made SimCity and The Sims. And I had just signed an offer letter to do an internship there. I grew up playing The Sims and SimCity games, but I never even thought that was a job that people had, much less that I would be standing there taking a mental picture of an offer letter I had signed, committing to go work for them. I was trained in college as a user experience designer, but when those planes hit those towers in 2001, it was my senior year in college. So the job I had lined up went away, and I had to get creative. So I detoured to grad school in a place called the Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon. And long story short, part of what I studied there was game design. And that was what led to my internship offer as a production intern at Maxis. What was a bit more complicated was that there were only like 12 or 20, I forget, it was 12 or 20 internships at the company. And yet my boyfriend of 4 years was one of the other people who received an internship offer. And you'd think that would be more of an exciting thing, but we'd been together for 4 years, and the previous summer when I'd interned at Disney World, he had cheated on me, but it was too complicated to break up. We were living together and in grad school. So I had been expecting this summer internship to be a sign like that should break up, but instead We packed a very ill-advised set of things into his Volkswagen Jetta, including a PlayStation 2, a TV VCR combo that broke on the drive, and exactly one spoon, and drove to Walnut Creek, California. When we got there and got into orientation, we learned we'd been assigned 2 very different projects, mercifully. He was on The Sims 2, which was a big flagship project, but it was, it had to wait 2 years. He had to wait 2 years for his first shipped title. So I was on the last expansion pack for The Sims 1. Less prestigious, but more experience more quickly. And I got a game credit within 4 months. Sims make magic. So the next year, though, after those 4 months, was a whirlwind. I didn't get approved for my grad school loans to go back to school. I had to hustle and talk to nearly every team at Maxis, but I managed to get a team to give me an offer to stay as a co-op, which is essentially a fancy kind of internship. And I joined the handheld team. Sims Making Magic was a PC game. The handheld team was a lot more work. My first week on the Making Magic team, I went to a ship party and we went to go play video games after being on the booze bus. But there was work and it was fine. But like as soon as I started on the handheld team, started working 80-hour weeks, not paychecks. Weeks. And I was going through my pay stubs recently and I confirmed this. This wasn't just a figment of my imagination. There were 2 of us outside of quality assurance, just me, an assistant producer, and my boss, the producer. We were publisher producers on this title. In the previous game, we were hands-on. We were making the game. There were developers and producers. We were all making it. But in this case, there was a developer out in Seattle who was going ahead and making the game, and we were giving them feedback as their client. So it was a much different dynamic. So I joined a game called Sims Bustin' Out for the Game Boy Advance when they were in alpha, working out the bugs, doing 80 hours a week, helping them figure out how to localize their title into 6 languages. And within 2 months and a lot of hours, I'd shipped a second title. Shortly thereafter, my boss took a vacation and during that vacation, a mini scandal hit, which was my first preview of extra responsibility. There was a line of text in the game, is that a banana in your pocket or are you just happy to see me? That pissed off the entertainment rating software board. And I, the 23-year-old assistant producer, was the first line of defense when these calls came in. So I'm the one negotiating with the ESRB and our vice presidents at Electronic Arts. So that was the beginning of the amplification of the stress at that job, as if the 80-hour weeks weren't enough. Our next game was actually 2 games. It was The Herbs, very unfortunately named Sims in the City, for the Game Boy Advance. But we were also turning that game into one of the 6 launch titles for the Nintendo DS. Very big deal. The Nintendo DS had not shipped yet. This was that console was out for 15 years, but no one had seen it yet. And we were one of the 6 teams building for it. I was suddenly entrusted with secrets and secret hardware that even my game design idol Will Wright did not have. And I still needed to help with other games and do press events in addition to producing 2 games at once. I fell asleep under my desk multiple times using a stuffed crocodile as a pillow, and I, to this day, don't know whose stuffed crocodile that was. Sometimes I was too tired to drive home and had to stay at the Sofitel across the street. EA worked their people so hard that this was a common occurrence, and so all you had to do was just go across the street to the Sofitel and show your EA badge, and they would just give you a room, whatever they had available. You wouldn't have new clothes. You just go in and go to sleep and then shower and put on your old clothes and then take the walk of shame back to your office. Just feeling a little bit defeated and very much not refreshed.
Well, it looks like we've had some technical difficulties, so we're gonna pause that story with a cliffhanger, and come back to it. I think it looks like we had a couple of cutouts, so we'll just take that as a Zoom break. Thank you, storytellers, for hanging in there.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back, Cheryl. Excellent. All right.
Suspense.
Well, are you okay with your intermission? I'm not sure if you know exactly where you froze out, so I'll get you to go back, a little bit in your story and loop us back in. If that sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. So sometimes I was too tired to drive home and had to stay at the Sofitel across the street. It was depressing to know that the 20-minute drive was unsafe. And it happened so often at EA that they had a standing gig. You could just walk across the street, show your employee badge, and they would just let you in. You didn't have new clothes, so you would just sleep in your clothes and take a shower and put the clothes back on and show up. That's life at EA. Now, a big part of my job on these games was to visit our developer in Seattle to help with game design decisions and approvals. The loop was too long if you had to rely on emails. My first visit had been for the Bustin' Out ship party. Yes, my first,
Well, apparently, in the theme of quitting, we're gonna deal with Zoom quitting a little bit tonight. So it looks like we had another freeze. I'll tell you what. Rather than continue to interrupt Cheryl's story, I think I want to bring out two improvisers to improvise the next story, assuming we have them available. Cynthia and Jessica, are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
Unfrozen.
All right. And Jessica, you're there. Cheryl, you're unfrozen. I don't want to keep interrupting you. So let's do the improvised story and then let's get the second half of your story. If that's
okay.
Okay. Thank you, internets and Zoom and everything else that quits. So hold on for that. Cynthia, Jessica, your challenge for this improvised story is this. I'm going to give you each a secret for this story, and you're not going to. The story's not about the secret. It's just a thing that you, as a storyteller, like it's your secret to hold on to. So it's not what the story's about. You can just let it affect how you tell the story in whatever way seems right to you. So I don't know if you can either turn your volume down or plug your ears, whatever you like. But Jessica, I'll get you to do that, and I'll wave at you when it's time to switch back.
All right, muting now.
Okay. All right. Cynthia, you're how do I want to do this? You've been in a relationship with Jessica for a while, and Jessica's character, I should say, not Jessica. Maybe you have. That's okay. And you're getting ready. You're thinking it's about time to propose. So like it's been long enough. Maybe you're done with being single, and you're on the cusp of like time for a change, right? All right, great. I will now get you to mute. I'll wave Jessica in. All right.
Hey.
Okay. So Cynthia, you cannot hear me? Okay, good. So you've been in a relationship with Cynthia for a while, and it's just time to get out of it, I think.
Okay.
You're not, you can decide. You don't have to be miserable or unhappy, but it's run its course.
Just yeah.
So great. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, I'm gonna wave Cynthia in, even though she's literally disappeared from her. All right. There she is. All right. You both have your secrets?
Yes.
All right. And again, the story does not have to do anything with the secret. It should be in some way about quitting. So, all right. Thank you.
Candace and I met, well, is funny because we actually met at my sister's wedding. It was so fun. And I had just come out, and you know, when you go to a wedding, you're supposed to be looking at all the guys and hoping to catch the bouquet and all that. But man, I just she was just so full of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I sure was, wasn't I? Oh man. Oh, and I think it like, gosh, we were all taking bets. Like those of us who didn't really know your sister. I mean, I've got some friends who like to show up to weddings and be like, "So, how long do you think this whole thing is going to last?" And I think I actually won that bet. 3 years. Yeah, and then they got divorced. But that night, it was magical. The reception was beautiful. I got one of the centerpieces because I had a sticker on my napkin holder. That was cool. And
And Candace and I danced. We danced and danced and danced, and
Yep.
I don't know. I just kind of fell head over heels for her. And it didn't take long, about, was it 6 months, I think, and we moved in together.
We moved in together.
We
Yeah.
moved in together. Hmm.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
really saw myself as a person who would want to live in the suburbs, but Paula was like, "Hey, this is a good idea," and I was like, "Yeah,
Well,
for
I owned a house. It was a small house, but I owned a house, and I
It's
wanted
small.
her to be there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, you know, of course, with any relationship, there's stresses and stuff. I mean,
yeah."
about how to clean up and not clean up, and
Some of us do, and some
and
of us
how to get the rent in on time.
right.
You know, so,
I know that you struggle with that, don't you?
you
Yeah.
know, but the thing is, I feel like it's those bumps in the road that make the relationship stronger.
Sure. I mean, it depends on how you work through it together or not, but yeah, it can.
I think it just
That night was so great, and I will always look back on it fondly. Never regretting having met this wonderful person that I knew. No,
and I'm hoping someday, you
Me
know, that
someday.
I'm hoping someday. I mean, I love big parties, especially if it's something
Right,
that
your
you're
birthday's
really
coming up. The big
is.
3-5, right? Right. Cool.
I think it's in the 4s.
Yep. Sorry, I was trying to be kind again. Yeah. Yeah, I know how old you are. Yeah. So anyhow, you learn things about one another. You make plans, and sometimes they pan out, and sometimes they don't.
But I tell you,
Yeah.
here's the thing. If you work through the little problems every day and just use that as the thread that stitches the relationship together, nobody can tear it apart.
Right. It's just like having a straitjacket that you made yourself. Still can't get out of it sometimes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that story. A story about quitting. Yep. Storytellers, I'm going to bring you out and find out if you're all still alive. 2 of our storytellers have had technical challenge. One of them's literally sideways. But they're all here. So I don't want to throw a major corporation under the bus, but Cheryl may be being attacked by a company whose name rhymes with bombast. So, you know, you can just guess who that is. Hopefully everyone got to hear the story, the improvised story. The challenge was knowing they were either going to break up or propose. So 3 judges. Lindsay, how did they meet the challenge?
Yeah, I enjoyed that the way that they made this happen in a Zoom format. So I think Cynthia's smile did a lot of good work, and I think Jessica's eyes did a lot of good work in their acting. And I particularly liked the exchange. We moved in together, and we moved in together. I thought that was wonderful. So I'm gonna go ahead and give these 2 a 4.
All right, a 4, excellent. And Cheryl, you were judging the story. Where was it in terms of story for you?
It was like I'm torn because it was almost a little less narrative movement than the first story. But I agree with Lindsay's assessment that there was emotional connection and like acting there. So but as far as like story and narrative arc, like not much change there. So I feel like I have to give, in the terms of my responsibilities, I have to give it a 2.
2. All right. Thank you. Thank you for being tough, as I asked. And Tracey, you were judging. Was it based on? Did it hit the theme? I quit.
Don't really. I mean, we knew obviously that Jessica's face did all the quitting, which was fantastic. We sort of wanted them to like fight about quitting something weird, like let's quit the ceramics class, and then I think that's what I was hoping for when I put my fish into the ocean. So I'm going to give them a 3. I'm going to give them a 3, but almost all of that is on Jessica's face.
I think a great title for a film noir novel would be "Her Face Did All the Quitting." So. So thank you. So that's going to bring that story ended at a 9. So thank you for that. And Cheryl, I'm seeing a different angle on you. So I'm guessing you found a way around some of.
I'm connected on my phone. Yes.
Yeah. This is the advantage of having tech people in our show. So are you ready to finish that story?
Yes, and of course, this was all part of the plan. Was suspense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will let you take it away.
All right. So when we last left, we were probably talking about the fact that I loved being out and working with the development team in Seattle. I had my first trip was out here to work for a ship party, but as time went on over the course of the year that we were working on these 2 games, or 9 months, give or take, there was so much more. We made such great progress side by side, making game design decisions, making decisions about the shape of the game. And during this 9 months, I was operating solo most of the time. I'm 24 years old at that point, and but either I was in Seattle as the only EA representative by myself, or my boss was on 4-week press tours in Asia, and I was just in charge of the project by myself, which was great if you wanted to learn a lot of responsibility and stuff. Not great if you liked things like sleep or lack of stress. And I noticed that my level, and everyone noticed that my level of responsibility was way higher than people with job titles higher than me around me. And I was unsatisfied. I loved the kind of work I was doing, but I didn't like not being recognized for it. I wanted a job title that matched my responsibilities, and my time with the team out in Seattle made it clear that I wanted to lead game development teams. And around that time, on one of my trips, I learned that the client studio had an opening for an associate producer, and I was just an assistant producer at EA. Now that individual would run a team. I applied immediately. I didn't care about how awkward it would be or whether it was even contractually allowed. I just applied. But I was still conflicted about leaving my dream gig. I grew up playing Maxis games. So I asked for a meeting with my executive producer, Sinjin Bain.
which is a hell of a villain name. But I wouldn't necessarily call him a villain in the story. He was one of those folks who was generally supportive, but not quite when you needed it. He did have an open 7 days neon sign above his cubicle, which is a little villainy and not exactly what you want in a workplace boss. I sat down at his round table in the open plan cubicle. He was wearing an unassuming gray sweatshirt and put his feet up on the table, exposing the hole in the bottom of his shoe. Whether that meant he was down to earth or too busy to get a replacement, I'll never know. I made a clear case. I was doing more work than other people with my job title and some above it. I wanted to run teams. I wanted a promotion commensurate with my responsibility and capability. But I was told I had to pay my dues for maybe 4 or 5 years. 4 to 5 years? When then just a couple years older than me had that title and did less work. So on my next business trip, where I was flown out to speak at Nintendo's press launch event for the Nintendo DS, as the only person who was not the president of a company doing so, introduced by the president of Nintendo America himself. But yeah, tell me about those dues. After that demo, I interviewed formally at Kryptonite Games. They did ask me how they would know I wasn't an EA spy, but otherwise it went well. An excruciating few weeks passed, but one night, driving home in my 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid that I had just bought, I got the call. And I remember I was just driving past this digital billboard on the 101 in Silicon Valley that often would crash, and it ran Windows, so it had the blue screen of death on it. And I got the call telling me that I was offered the job and I would need to move out in 2 weeks. And I had no problem with that. There might have also been a love story involved in this, but that's a story for another time. So I turned in my notice, and my boss was not surprised. In fact, she had been pressuring them to make the decision because she wanted to know whether she could count on me for the next project. We were friends, so we were pretty open with each other. But the next Monday after I gave my notice on a Friday, I came in the next Monday, and the workplace mood was different. And one pictures one's workplace being upset that one has quit, but this seemed a little bit beyond the pale. And I asked someone what was going on, and someone said, "Have you seen LiveJournal?" LiveJournal? A woman named Erin Hoffman, who was then anonymous and only known by the moniker EA Spouse, had posted an expose about the way EA was treating their employees. She was married to an employee on the Lord of the Rings team, which was a team of about 120 people that EA had been working 7 days a week mandatorily with 9 to 12-hour days. And she wrote about how this was killing her marriage and how it was killing her husband. And she may have also mentioned the incident where the entire Lord of the Rings team got food poisoning because the cafeteria served just inappropriate dinner. We had so many people working overnight that most local restaurants stopped taking our calls. So we had to get dinner at the restaurant. This was not Google food. This LiveJournal post blew the industry open. It resulted in 2 lawsuits that EA lost and changed the way employees were classified at the company. And all of this dropped the business day after I gave my notice. And it was so weirdly, it was vindicating to realize that my frustration was not fictional. It was not based on some irrational sense, but the whole industry was aghast at the conditions we had been working under. And there was also a certain sense of being in that just timeless gif of Beyonce walking away from a car that's on fire. I felt like just letting the car burn as I walked towards my new dream job in Seattle. And the epilogue to this story, I took the job. 2 weeks later, I started as an associate producer at Kryptonite Games, and I was working on the Game Boy version of Chronicles of Narnia for the Game Boy Advance. And I showed up and my boss was like, "Hey, Disney needs a game design doc from scratch and a schedule in 2 weeks. Have fun." everything I kind of ever wanted. And within 9 months, not only had I shipped my game on time, with my team happy, my client happy, my employers were so happy that they gave me a promotion to full producer within 9 months. So EA wanted me to wait 4 years to get a promotion to associate producer. And within a year at Kryptonite Games, I was a producer in charge of 2 game development teams on Pirates of the Caribbean games for Disney, our biggest and most important client. So if there's anything you take away from my quitting story, it's that their opinion does not have to define your potential.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you, Internet Gods, for letting us hear the whole story. So
T-Mobile!
Nice. Excellent. Yes. All right. There you go. We're down to our final 2 story, and we're not, we don't judge our true stories, but if there was a technical challenge category, I would give you a 5. We're down to 2 more stories tonight. Before I bring out Tracey in just a minute to tell her story, I do want to mention my co-director for the show, Kent Whipple, an amazing storyteller himself, teaches a storytelling class, which thanks to everything going on and the fact we're online, you can take no matter where you are in the world. I will say my partner Janine is taking it right now, and it's like one of her favorite days of the week. And the showcase for the existing classes tomorrow, I believe at 3 p.m., which you should be able to see on here on Twitch. But that means it's time for another class. So March 14th, it's 6 Sundays starting on March 14th at 3 p.m. Seattle time, that's Pacific. You can take it. Each one's 2 hours long. Totally recommend it. Don't pass up the opportunity. You can find that on our website, unexpectedproductions.org, under school and under specialty classes, or you can search for Creating Stage-Worthy Personal Narrative Stories. But take advantage of the opportunity if you would like to tell stories like the people are tonight. So with that, I want to bring out Tracey Croisier. I'm just going to get more and more French now. To tell one more true story. So thank you, Tracey.
Sure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for getting my name right. So I knew that when I graduated from college in Texas that I had to get the hell out of Dodge because I was not a Republican and my hair was too short and my shoes were too flat for me to comfortably stay there as a Texas woman. And so I moved to what I thought was the liberal heaven, which was that of New York City in 1986. And when I flew up for my job interview, my boss, or my soon-to-be boss, looked at me and he's looking at my resume and he said, "Why the fuck should I hire somebody from Texas when I have the Ivy League in my backyard?" I'd never heard somebody speak so directly before, and I don't know how or why, but I said, "Well, why the fuck wouldn't you?" And weirdly, I got the job, which was kind of cool. And so they sent me a hire letter, and they told me that they were excited to bring me into their public relations firm as a secretary. And I called them and said, "I'm sorry, there must have been a mistake because I've gone to college and I'm not a typist." And they said, no, it's just the entry level title. And so I figured I would suck it up, buttercup, and I would move to New York and I would make a change on things. And so I moved to New York and I worked for the guy, and I learned that there are 12 of us that are newly hired out of college, and we're all called secretaries. And within a couple of months, we realized that we're just really not comfortable with that title. I mean, it just is an old-fashioned title. And so we band together and we go to management and we say, "Listen, here's what we need. We need business cards. We want to be called account assistants. And we also want to have our own telephone line." And they agreed to all of our terms. And I was really excited. I was feeling like kind of making it in this city. And then, about a year goes forward, and out of 12 of us that had started as secretaries and became account assistants, out of 12, 11 of the 12 people had gotten promoted. And in case you're wondering, spoiler alert, it was not me. I was still at my stupid secretary desk. And I went to the HR person and said, what's up? And she said, you know what? We just want to make sure we find the right client for you. And I thought, well, okay, I'll take that. And so another 4, 5, 6 months goes on. And then she said, guess what? We've got this new client and we're going to reassign you a new boss. And so they give me this new boss, and his name is Rob Saffer. And Rob is now 3 years younger than me. He is really just as dumb as a sack of hair. He had never really worked in the corporate environment before. And he starts treating me like a secretary and wants me to get coffee for him. This is 1986, just in case you're wondering. And then he tells me to type up his resume, which I did, which is when I realized that he worked as like a taco boy during his summers. And then he says, hey, can you take my paycheck to the bank? Because again, olden times, you had to go to the bank and give them your check. And I looked down and he is making $26,000 a year. And I am making $14,000 a year. So I make a photocopy of the pay stub because I've got proof that something is rotten in Denmark. And so I get him coffee and deposit his paycheck. And I come back and I go to my boss and I say, hey, there's a mistake here. I'm now working for someone 3 years younger who's making double what I'm making. And he said, well, he's a guy. And I said, I don't understand that. And he said, well, he has men support families. And I said, he's 23 and he lives with his mother on the Upper West Side with free rent. He doesn't, I've typed his resume and here's a copy of his paycheck. There's something horribly wrong here. And he says, you should talk to my boss about it. And I was young enough and naive enough to think like, yay, I'm making progress. And I didn't realize that he was just getting rid of me. So then I go to my boss's boss. And he says, well, it's not really 100% more than he's making. And I'm like, it's okay. It's like 90%. He goes, I think you're really overwrought about a minor problem. And a guy would never take less than 20 grand out of college. And I said, what? Because he's a guy? Like I sort of knew on an intellectual level that women were making less than men, but I didn't think that it would just smack me in the face. And so then they're like, listen, you should go talk to HR about this because they'll have answers. And again, I'm like, yay, I'm making progress as a corporate woman. And so I go in to talk to this nice woman named Nancy Goldfarb. And she looks at me and she says, I understand you have a complaint. And I said, I do. I don't understand. I've been with you. I haven't gotten a pay raise. I make $14,000 a year in New York City. And she said, I think really overwrought. And I said, it's so hard to make ends meet. Yes. And I don't understand why he is making 26. And she said, well, he's a guy. And I was like, but why? But like, I don't understand that. And she said, well, again, he's probably going to get married in a couple of years and he'll have a family to support. And I'm like, he lives with his mother. Like nobody seemed to care about the fact that he was making twice as much as me. And so she said, I think you should take some time off. And I was like, oh, I don't have any vacation days. And she said, that's okay. Just stop coming in. And I was like, are you firing me? Because I knew if I quit, I wouldn't get unemployment. That's all I knew about being an adult. Don't ever quit. And she said, I just think you're really a little hung up on this issue. And I was like, but I just don't understand the why. And so all I've really come up with is it because he has a penis? Is that all it is? Because so for a solution, I'm going to go over to the the little creepy Times Square area and I'll just buy a strap on because that would count as having a penis, right? That would surely take me from 14 to 26 because that would make me on par with Rob. And then there's kind of this really awkward moment because I just can't believe that I said in a corporate setting that I was going to buy a strap on, but it's horrible. And so she said, take some time off. And then I said, are you paying me? And we do this several times. And so I said, you owe me this job. And so I'm going to keep coming in and you're going to keep paying me. And so I did. And they kept giving me worse and worse tasks. And at one point they assigned me an online university, which nobody believed in at the time. Who's going to take classes online? This is ridiculous. So they assigned me to this horrible technology client, and they wanted me to cold call newspaper editors every day. And I realized at that moment that I couldn't fix the penis problem. I couldn't fix that, but I still had my morals. And so, yeah, at that point, I was like, by the way, I'm not coming in anymore. Bye. And I left because nobody ever has a class on how to actually really quit a job.
Thank you, Tracey.
You're welcome.
It is now time for our final story of the night, an improvised story. So one more challenge, and I'm going to bring out Cynthia and Leah, who we've not yet heard tell a story together. And I was thinking about I quit this week, and we had the Mars landing, Perseverance, and I thought about quitting Earth, and it just made me want to throw you a style challenge. So I would like I quit story that two of you are going to tell us, but it's a story in the future at some point. So so you can take that as a science fiction challenge, or you can just set it in the future, however you like, however far you want to go.
Bonnie and I were in uncharted territory. We had a life to rebuild, and I didn't know where to start.
Good morning, Bonnie. Happy Friday.
As I frantically pressed buttons to try to figure out our new communication style, I couldn't help but wonder, was this a good idea?
Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning, Amelia.
I've been programmed so that my eyes blink now. Do you feel more comfortable with me with blinking eyes?
I had to admit I was impressed. This thing I had built from the scraps that were left over after, well, I did the best I could. But here I was with what was now my only friend on Earth. Would you like some coffee,
Would you like
Bonnie?
to know your agenda today, Bonnie?
Well, first I would like some coffee, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I missed
I
the
was
warmth.
going to read your agenda, Bonnie. I was going to read your agenda, Bonnie. I was going to read your agenda,
And I slapped
Bonnie.
the side of the machine. This was not a common occurrence. Before this, I was a librarian. I adapted to technology, but I was no expert. But here I was with my new creation, doing my best, and I had to admit I missed the warmth of human contact.
Look, Bonnie, I have one eyebrow raised. It's a new technology. It means I'm having feelings. Can you tell what feelings I'm having, Bonnie?
I had programmed Amelia to show things I missed, like concern, disturbance, and I had them go off at random intervals. See, back in the before times, I used to get upset at 10 in the morning because I hadn't remembered to make my coffee, and I was having a caffeine crash, and I was worried that the migraine I was starting to experience was some bigger health problem, but no, it was just caffeine. That's okay, Amelia. I'm doing
You
okay.
like your coffee now, Bonnie?
Yes, that would be great.
I'm not going to make it for you today, Bonnie.
I had programmed Amelia to fight with me. But today I just wasn't in the mood. Amelia,
What are you going to do about it, Bonnie?
this wasn't the day. So I pressed some buttons frantically. All I wanted was my coffee. And I said, look, Amelia, I need coffee to get through this week, because if I do not get through this week, both of us are going to be destroyed and the human race will not be able to perpetuate itself.
I'm having feelings, Bonnie.
No, you're not. I
programmed me to have
programmed them.
feelings.
So I started
To me,
pressing.
Bonnie.
I started pressing buttons, and I kept pressing buttons, and I kept pressing buttons, and Amelia, she started smoking, and she started glitching.
Bonnie. Bonnie.
And my airway got constricted as I, Amelia! I never wanted this. And before everything went black, I pressed one more button. And that was it. My only friend was no more. I looked over at the kitchen counter, what was left of it, and saw a 16-ounce bag of crowns. Well, I said, I guess I'm going to have to learn to do a lot for myself. And I started boiling water.
All right. Thank you, improvising storytellers. That was our last improvised story of the night. I'm going to bring out our true storytellers to give us one more judgment on that story, Bonnie and Amelia. So Lindsay, the challenge was just to set it in the future, to give it a style. How'd you feel?
Yeah, so there was a spectrum. So I really liked Leah's creepy allusions to like what something had happened, and they were sort of in the after times. So for that reason, future, there was references to the future, loved it. Then there was Cynthia's creepy robot character, which reminded me of the character Vicky from Small Wonder in the 80s. So that took me back. That didn't feel like the future. It felt like a throwback, which it was a terrible show, by the way. Don't watch that show, Small Wonder. And then, so we've got a little bit of the past, a little bit of the future, and then the boiling water reference right at the end there. Very present day, very sort of now of the moment for the folks suffering down in Texas. And so that was sort of a present day reference. So I'm going to say that we netted out right in the middle. So I'd give it a 3.
Right at a 3. All right. Cheryl, you were looking at the story.
I thought that there was a good arc there. Obviously, we saw change. The robot's relationship with its creator obviously changed over time, permanently, and so I appreciated that. The perspective of the creator also had to change. I can't give it a 5 because I feel like I didn't get as much emotional effect, as much being emotionally affected by the changes I would have liked. In particular, like I was so excited when Cynthia was like, I'm not giving you your coffee today. And to find out that it was like expected, I was like, oh, it felt like that could have been and they did find a way to turn to push the story forward. But it felt like we missed an opportunity to like get deeper character growth there. Like, I didn't for both of them, perhaps. So I would keep that a 4.
A 4. All right. And Tracey, a story about a librarian for you. Your job is to judge. Did they meet the theme of I Quit?
So I think that they really did meet the theme, because I mean, really, death is the final quit with a capital Q. And so there's that. And also, I wish we had a place for this score, but props to Jason, because
Yes.
that music was like Little Miss Sunshine and the squeaking sound. That music was its own part of specialness. So thank you, Jason. So I just went straight to a 5 because you can't get more quitty than Deathy.
All right. So excellent. So while I send that out, I'm going to bring everybody out. And I want to thank everybody for the stories tonight. I decided to direct this show when I was like, what do I just want to see? Like, it's mainly for my benefit. So the fact we have a show is just extra. And I want to thank our audience for being here. It's been delightful. Jason, you've gotten several compliments from people in chat. So so not just here. So but thank you all for your stories. I'm summing them up here, the improvised stories. And we have Her Face Did All the Quitting came in at 9. The Beaker story came in at 9.5, but none of them could beat Bonnie and Amelia, which came in at a whopping 12 points. So Bonnie and Amelia is our winning story of tonight. So thank you. I want to thank everyone for being part of this and invite you to come next week or the week after. We have a whole set of shows. It's all available on our website, Unexpected Productions. And speaking of maybe I should quit, I forgot to do my homework and look at next week's theme. I'm going to, what's that?
Big Trouble.
Big Trouble. See, I should have known. Next week's theme is Big Trouble. Again, we'll have 3 storytellers, 3 improvisers, a whole new set of stories. Come check it out. Look over all our shows on our website. I know as Seattle opens up a little bit, our flagship show, Theater Sports, is going to be coming back. It's sort of a mixture of live and film performance. So all on our website, unexpectedproductions.org. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're probably on a bunch of other technologies that I'm too old to know about. But look for us wherever you look for things. Thanks for being part of this. And storytellers, round of applause for all of you. So thank you. And everybody have a good night.